When creating and leveling up your character, particularly in an RPG, you'll be wanting to give them the best stats possible. Maybe that's a focus on damage dealing, stealth, just something that's going to make them exceptional. But sometimes the path to becoming exceptional is not quite so straightforward. Looks can often be deceiving, as some skills may appear useless when you get them, offering nothing beyond a cosmetic change or a weak ability, but in reality, they might possess a hidden use that makes them well worth the investment.
So, these video game abilities may look weak on the surface, but they are secretly packing one hell of a punch. I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 useless video game abilities that are secretly deadly.
Oh, hey, actually, just before we start here, you're gonna notice something a little bit different about this list. And that's mainly the fact that Jess is also in
Hello.
it. Because it turns out that there was a bit of a miscommunication over who was actually gonna be recording this one, so we both went ahead and did it. So you get 2 presented for the price of 1. And that price is 0, by the way, unless you subscribe and join and do all the other stuff as well. So consider yourself lucky, I guess. Well, at least it'll be 50% better now that Jess is in it. Anyway, enjoy.
Nurgle's Foul Stink, Total War Warhammer 3. Composing your army in Total War Warhammer 3 can be a pretty daunting task. You got hundreds of different units to choose from, and each one can seem deadly in its own different way. But if you're playing as the Beastmen faction, the greatest weapon in your arsenal is actually a bunch of really stinky cow people. One of the unique traits that the heroes and lords of the Beastmen factions can gain is Nurgle's Foul Stink. The trait allows them to slightly lower the enemy army's leadership in combat, which on its own doesn't really sound that useful. But the thing that makes this deceptively minor debuff as strong as it is that it stacks. Meaning if you create an army consisting of only very stinky heroes, their combined stench will lower any army's leadership below 0. Then all you have to do is kill a few of the hostile units to immediately cause the rest to flee. Even the mightiest of forces will run away from your bovine stink, so if you don't feel like strategizing or getting particularly good at the game and want an easy win, just make sure you pick really smelly leaders and you are good to go.
Now we're talking about Mortal Legend from Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is an RPG based off of the tabletop game of the same name. Well, it wasn't going to be Cluedo, was it? The game's most prominent mechanic is Mythic Parts, which allows your character to gain the powers of a demigod. You can gain the abilities of devils, angels, liches, and more, becoming far more powerful than regular heroes. This being said, late into the game, you may choose to reject your superhuman powers to instead become a mortal legend. Now, doing so will take away all of your mythic abilities in exchange for raising your level cap, which kinda sounds worthless, but is secretly the best way to break the game. While spawning hordes of the undead or smiting foes with the powers of heaven itself sounds pretty cool, the raised level cap is actually far more fun, as it doubles the number of levels you can have from 20 to 40, meaning that you can boost your stats to the point where even level 20 enemies will feel as if they're level 1 to you. Your legend character will deal damage in the thousands and have so much HP that even the strongest bosses will only take away a tiny fraction of that health bar. Who needs Divinity when you can simply break the game and become God itself? By not being a god. You know what I mean.
Charisma, Swords and Sandals. Swords and Sandals is an old but classic Flash game about fictional gladiators. Although its original version has been lost with Flash's demise, you can still play the Steam version, and if you do, you're gonna want to try out this strategy. Leveling up your gladiator correctly in Swords and Sandals can often feel kind of intimidating, as you don't have a lot of time between new matches, and you need to raise a lot of stats simultaneously to have a chance at surviving the tournaments. That is, unless you just dump all your points into charisma. While most people would tell you that creating the perfect gladiator requires a balance of strength, stamina, and top shelf gear, charisma can secretly obliterate your enemies on its own. Charisma makes your shout actions in the arena more successful, and while that might sound like it's not that useful, in reality, high charisma shouting has a high chance of dealing large amounts of damage to your opponent or making them immediately forfeit the duel. You can use swords and shields, absolutely, but if you want to, you can just yell at your opponent enough that they just decide they don't want to fight you, because it's too hard and you're too tough, you're too charismatic. They don't want to take you on and you win.
Okay, it's time to repair some toasters in Wasteland 3. Wasteland 3 is a post-apocalyptic RPG filled with psychotic raiders and mutated monsters, and so, as such, it makes sense to give your characters the necessary skills for survival. Now, most people assume that that means just making them more proficient with, like, guns and melee weapons. However, true fans of the series know that the deadliest of all things lies inside broken toasters. Toaster repair is a skill in Wasteland 3 that very obviously sticks out from the rest of the more survival-related talents. However, despite it doing exactly what it says, giving you the ability to repair one of the most basic appliances in your kitchen, the world of Wasteland is actually full of bread burners with ridiculously powerful items just hidden inside. Every toaster that you repair comes with a secret prize, some of which are simple things like money, and some of which are unique, weird science weapons like the Argon Lance, which can immediately vaporize your enemies, or a blueprint for the Tar Thrower launcher that can burn hostiles for thousands of damage. How any of these items fit inside the appliance is anyone's guess, but I guess that's why they were broken in the first place. All you need to know is how to repair toasters, so pick up that skill.
Water walking, World of Warcraft. Each class in World of Warcraft comes with a set of unique abilities that range from deadly to absolutely gimmicky. In terms of the Shaman class, the spell Water Walking might seem like it belongs to the latter category, but with the right preparation and tactics, it can become your greatest weapon against a horde of enemies and nasty gankers trying to kill you in the wild. As you might expect, Water Walking is a utility spell that allows you to walk on water. It lets you walk on water for 10 minutes at a time. While at first glance that appears to be nothing but a party trick that you can use to impress your friends with your overly accurate Jesus impression, in reality, the skill can turn you into the apex predator of every pool of water in the game. Since swimming underwater is incredibly slow and takes away your ability to cast certain spells, not to mention the breathable air limit, when you can fight submerged enemies while walking on the surface, you basically become invincible and significantly stronger than your opponents. Knowing this, you can also lure land creatures and players into bodies of water, and you'll have your full suite of combat abilities while they're just flailing about underwater. As you can imagine, you'll probably come out on top there.
Let's talk about campfire making from Valheim. So Valheim is a Viking-themed survival game in which you take on powerful mythical monsters to prove your warrior skills to the Norse gods. Now the game offers you a variety of different weapons and combat skills in order to do this, but if you're taking on the first two bosses, then the only ability that you really need is how to make campfires. Yet, you see, the fastest way to kill the two starting bosses in the game is by placing campfires and letting them burn themselves to death by stepping on them. To make this exploit work, you first need to gather enough wood and stone to be able to build 4 walls and a handful of campfires. The trick is to quickly build the walls and campfires around the spot where the bosses spawn so that they become trapped inside and constantly burn themselves on the fire as they try to escape the walls. Now the timing here can be tricky as you only have like a few seconds to localize the spawn point and build the trap after activating the boss's altar, but learning this skill is definitely worth the effort, as the campfires can kill both starter bosses in less than a minute, making them the fastest and most resource efficient weapons.
Fear, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. The Illusion School of Magic in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim might be one of the most underrated skill trees in the game. The Calm and Fury spells are perfect for killing off your enemies without ever actually having to fight them, as they'll either let you effortlessly stab them in the back or kill each other for you. However, the same can't be said for the spell Fear. It's a more expensive version of Calm, and as you can imagine, instead of having your enemies wait around to be killed, it causes them to run away from you. That said, although the spell seems kinda useless, the perks for Fear spells are secretly the greatest damage buffs in the game. It's just that they don't actually apply to your Fear spells. The description of the perk aspect of Terror says that it buffs Fear spells to work on higher opponents, but in reality, it does way more than that. The perk actually buffs all fear-inducing abilities to be stronger, meaning if you combine it with the Augmented Flames perk, which causes your fire spells to cause fear, Aspect of Terror will make them deal a ton more damage, turning even your base flame spell into a weapon of mass destruction. Much more frightening than guys that just run away. Just brutal damage and easier to loot them.
Luck from the Fallout series. Now, the first two Fallout games are a lot more unforgiving than the latter titles in the series, and a poorly made character will not be long for this savage world. Now, most Fallout players try to make their characters as combat focused as possible to give them a chance to even make it to the end. However, the most seemingly useless attribute, luck, is secretly the most overpowered combat skill in your entire arsenal. You see, in the early game, high luck might not seem to do much, besides altering the game's ruthless RNG to be, well, marginally less ruthless, and it won't really boost your damage on weapons in any meaningful way, so it might feel like a waste to put too many points into it. However, if you make it to level 18 with a 10 luck character and you have 8 points in agility and perception, you can purchase the sniper perk that will suddenly make you appreciate your seemingly useless attribute. You see, sniper increases your probability to make a critical hit by 10% multiplied by your luck, meaning that a max luck character will have a 100% chance of doing critical damage with every single shot. And just like that, you can become the Wasteland's luckiest head-bursting badass.
Create water, Baldur's Gate 3. Your spellcaster's magical arsenal in Baldur's Gate 3 is staggering, which can make it kind of difficult for new players to figure out which ability is the strongest. You have your fireball, disintegration, and a ton of other deadly spells, but most players will probably be surprised to learn the most powerful ability in the game is the humble magic of Create Water. Create Water is a level 1 spell that, much like water walking, does exactly what it says on the tin. It lets you create a puddle of water, and while making your enemies wet might seem completely pointless, it's actually a hidden way of totally obliterating them. When a creature is in a puddle of water, they gain lightning vulnerability, which doubles the amount of damage they receive from that element. On top of that, once a wet surface is hit with a lightning spell, it becomes electrified. This causes everyone inside to receive additional damage and potentially become stunned. Combining lightning spells with watery surfaces will let you deal hundreds of points of damage to multiple enemies at once, even with low-level spells like Witch Bolt. This is even deadlier if you've spec'd into the Sorcerer's Storm Sorcery subclass, which lets your lightning spells become even more effective. Basically, you're just combining two elements to be an unstoppable killing machine.
And finally, let's talk about Barrelmancy from Divinity Original Sin 2. Divinity Original Sin 2 is a fantasy RPG set inside a world full of magic and supernatural powers. And when you create your character, you can make some pretty weird choices because there's some very weird abilities. But if you think spells like fireballs and necromancy are the most devastating attacks that you can unleash upon your enemies, think again, my friends, because actually the most powerful thing you can do here is take a barrel filled with worthless junk. You see, ever since the release of the game, fans of Divinity knew of a forbidden technique known as Barrelmancy. When you throw an object in the game, the damage it deals to a creature is calculated using your relevant abilities, but also, more importantly, the object's weight. Usually, the heaviest throwable objects don't have enough weight to deal serious damage, but if you stuff any large container like a barrel with random items, you can make it so hefty that you'll be able to throw it at your enemies for a ton, excuse the pun, of extra damage. The only limiting factor here is that the extra weight might also be too much for your character to lug around, but if you take the telekinesis spell and master it, any amount of weight in the game will only be your enemy's problem instead, because you've just thrown a massive barrel at their head. Plus, it's hilarious, taking down the end boss with that, just kind of like, I will destroy the world and reshape it in my own oh, a barrel, god damn, ow. Oh, I'm gonna need to sit down for a bit. That went right in my eye, you bastard.
That's the end of our list. Let me know down in that comment section if you know of any other useless abilities that are actually amazing that we may not have mentioned here, and which one of the ones I mentioned is your favorite. If you're looking for more videos, you come to the right place. We've got so many for you. In fact, we've got ones on all kinds of secrets, abilities, Easter eggs, things you might not know about your favorite games. We've got you sorted. There'll be a video that you can watch on screen, probably right now. Click it. You'll have fun. It'll be great. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon.